Hey guys, welcome back. We're going to be taking a look at the kit in this video. This kit, again, for people who don't remember, who have already forgotten because the video uploads are just so far apart, is this one, the BMW 635 Group A racing car that we're going to be building as this car, the STP sponsored Intertech 1985 Japanese Touring Car Championship. So let's go ahead and flip the camera on around and take a look at what you get in this kit from Tamiya in 1986. All right, so you start out with your normal Tamiya fold out, the older style instructions, the ones that fold out rather than being stapled down the middle. They give you a little bit of a history of the car as well as the race itself, which of course is going to focus because, why would it? There it goes. So try to get this put on here as good as I can. Try to figure out where the English is and the other languages are. So the English is up here on top rather than it being like all in English. So you can pause it there if you want to read more about the actual car itself. So going into the instructions are pretty much your basic Tamiya fare of the elderly type in the sense that these directions are not nearly as robust. Your warnings are basically all in Japanese. You need a pair of side cutters, a box cutter, and a pair of tweezers to build this thing. But you start off by building the engine. This is a Tamiya kit that does come with an engine. It's more or less the same engine that comes in the 635i street car, or the M6 really at that point. Then you go ahead and put the engine into the chassis itself. You see there's a decal for the Schnitzer that goes on the cylinder head. You come over here and you are building basically the top of the engine, the shock brace, the radiator. You then go into building the front suspension, the rear suspension. The chassis itself is white. There's really, interestingly, only one piece down here that's painted anything other than white, so that's kind of a change where you're not going to have to, mask off a whole mess to try to get this kit produced. There are some maskings, like for the shock tower, the strut mounts and things like that on the shock tower, but pretty much everything is white on that. And then you come over here and you build the rear suspension. You stick the wheels on along with the front sway bar and the exhaust. And then you go down here to building the interior, which is an old school interior that is a bucket. They did mount like the door handle separately, but that's sort of ineffective in this, or non-relevant, I guess I should say, in this, because obviously it's a race car. You come over here onto the back fold out. You build out your roll cage, build out your bottom of your dashboard. You have to trim the top of the dashboard in order to get this to fit, because it was designed, obviously this is the top of the dashboard of the street car, which would have been prototypically correct back in 1985. Obviously race cars were race cars, but they weren't, in this class in Group A, they weren't full-blown prototypes or anything else like that. They were very close to being factory stock. That's why the M6 to a certain extent exists, because they had to homogenize it for Group A. And down here it tells you to remove your scripts, to drill your holes for your fuel tank fillers. You come to the back, you install the glass, you install your headlight buckets, you install your fuel fillers, put the kit together, come down here, and I think it's awful odd that now you're going to detail paint the grill that's molded in. Obviously, you want to do that before you build, put the thing together. Here are the very detailed instructions on how to paint the BMW logo that we no longer need to paint, because, of course, we have the decals for it. A lot of the things you see sort of stuck to the roof and stuck to the doors in the next couple of things are specific to the 1985 24 Hours of Spa car, and they would not go on anything else, and the holes are not pre-drilled. I believe, we'll take a look at the body here in a second, but I believe like they're pre-drilled from the inside, but they're not through, so you don't have to worry about there being a hole in the roof. You see up here, the 24 Hours of Spa car uses these great big fog lamps. Those aren't drilled into the bumper automatically. You have to drill those out, so if you don't need to use them, you don't have to worry about it. And then your last bit here is building the back end of the car, which again, like I said, you're seeing all these like put these lights here, put these lights here, put this light over here. You don't actually use those lights for anything else. At least the inserts are not terribly difficult in terms of the painting. The trim as you know, this piece does need to be two-toned in terms of body color and the black rubber strip that goes around it, as is the front bumper one. But at least those pieces are separate from the actual bumpers themselves, so you're not having to mask off like the entire kit. There is quite a bit of window surround that you have to deal with. Flip it over here onto the front so you can get an idea of what that looks like. There's a black area, and then chrome trim, and then the inner like door surrounds. So a little bit of of detail painting required there, but overall, for what it could be in terms of these rubbers on the front and the back bumpers, having them be separate parts at least cuts down masking this entire thing off after you paint it white, rather than just having to mask off a couple of two different pieces. And if you manage to screw that up, it's much easier to strip the paint off those two little pieces than it is to off the whole body. So let's take a look at what you get in the actual kit itself. I'll take this stuff out of this box so I can use the bottom of it to put things on. There we go. First up, you have the clear tree. Let's see, these are stapled. Okay. I was going to say, if they're sealed shut, I'm not going to screw with them, but they're stapled shut, so that's not too bad. You have a one-piece glass here, obviously. I'm not necessarily sure how prototypically correct the rear window defroster lines are in it. Kind of hard to even see that they're there, but they are. This also has all of your various light pieces. You have your headlights, your fog lights, the rear tail lights, and then all of those little marker lights that go all over the car that you're not going to use on this build. So let me see if I can get out something. Let's see. We'll do this on here. Do the old optical clarity gag. Oops, let me see here. You do two different things at one time while I'm looking at the camera. There you go. So all in all, it's clear. Like, it's not. There's some distortion, but not a whole heck of a lot. The thing you see going up and down is actually the shadow from the runner circle that's holding the windshield on, rather than actually being, the window itself. So overall, not too terribly bad. It's in great condition for as old as it is. It does have like solid side windows, so those have a little bit of distortion in them. But this is 1986 technology in terms of like window casting. So I think all in all, it's passable. Again, I'm not exactly sure how prototypically correct rear window defroster is on this, but it may be, back at that point, there may have actually been rear window defrosters on those cars. Let's get that out of the way. This little baggie here, which I'm not going to bother to open, has your tires, and inside here you have your poly caps. Tires are a soft rubber slick, pretty decently molded. Let me get this to a way so you can see it. Oops, too close. But there's a mold line down the middle like you would expect on any tire, but it's pretty subdued considering the age of the tires. In terms of technology, tires from back in the day sometimes have really bad molding lines through them. These ones don't. Quick swipe through with your sanding stick will take care of the line, if you care about the line, in the first place. Some people do, some people don't. Then you have this small bag here, which, if I figure out where the heck the top of it is in terms of the staples, has two small parts runners in it that are basically the accessories for the body. You have this runner right here, which has the front bumper, the hood, the master brake cylinder, or the brake fluid reservoir, a couple of BMW license plates. This whole runner comes off of the street car, and then you have the mirrors. You've got, like I said, you have, whoops, put it this way. It's going to focus on that or not, if I need to bring the whole shebang of box up here. There you go. You got your M plates. They're upside down, I realize, but those are the plates that come with the actual street kit, so that you can paint them black, and I think you paint them white and then you paint the letters black for that age of German plate. But at any rate, obviously just kit parts for the street car. And then you have this other small runner, which has your front and rear bumper areas that have the black trim you need to paint around, your headlight buckets. Also on here are the, I'm going to say, whoops, let me throw it, that'll help. I'm not exactly sure what those two parts are. And then you have the mirror faces, which you have to paint then. I need to take a quick peek here and see what the heck these parts are. Maybe not even parts we use. I find in these older instructions, it will tell you, like, do not use parts. So this is runner D, and you do not use D4. So these parts are not used at all. So it doesn't matter what they are. It's irrelevant. They're not used. And then you have your BBS wheels. So this part's runner, while being, kind of sort of separate, if you will, has parts from the actual streetcar, but these wheels themselves are obviously center lock meshes and would be for the race car only. They're not for the actual streetcar. So a little bit of detail painting here. These will be gold in real life with a stainless or a polished aluminum rim, probably, or polished stainless rim. So I would paint, me personally, I would paint this gold, paint the center lock like a gunmetal color, because that's what it looks like it is on the box art, and then get your Molotow pen out and chrome plate basically the inside of the wheel, because that's going to give you the most realistic stainless finish, unless you want to go the extra route of picking up aftermarket BBS rims for this kit. They do exist. I believe Scale Production makes a set. I'm pretty sure they make a center lock racing set in this size. So there is that. And then we have this bigger, Tamiya is. You usually have a couple of little accessory runners, and then you have two big runners. And that's what these are going to be next. You have a little sheet of those wet-on-wet tire transfers that everybody pretty much hates about Tamiya kits. So there are some Goodyear logos for the wheels, should you be building the 24 Hours of Spa car. These look like they're in halfway decent shape for their age. And then you get this parts runner, which has pretty much all of your drivetrain and engine components and things like that. So this is upside down. We'll flip it in a second. Here is your dashboard. This way. It's your dashboard for the racing interior. Obviously just like a piece of the dashboard rather than it being the whole thing. You have your oil cooler. You have your engine intake. You have the oil pan, radiator hose, exhaust manifold or intake manifold. You have a reservoir fluid. I'm not exactly sure what. You have the strut tower for itself, half of the roll cage, the other half of the roll cage, the fire bottle. You have the turbo, I believe. Well, actually, it wouldn't be a turbo on this car, but you have part of the exhaust manifold, rather. The two halves of the engine. You have the headlight backs to the spotlights for the hook, for the front bumper. Your exhaust. Your racing seat, obviously. Your front struts. Your rear struts. Your front struts. Your radiator. I believe this is the transmission cooler itself. The other cross braces for the oops, a little bit too far off camera there. Cross braces for the top of the roll cage, the rear of the roll cage, your steering wheel, your turn signal, steering column. These pieces and these pieces are related to the air jack system, your pedal system there, and then you have your fuel filler doors, which are fuel filler caps, which are here, and then the other one is down there. So bring it up close here for a second on the engine. Engine has pretty good engraving for it being from 1986. Obviously, you need to address seams if you care. The racing seat, which I realize is upside down, kind of, sort of, but I'm trying to get it to, reflect best, if you will. Black's always a bad camera color. So you have that. It does have a little bit of detail on the back side that you will have to address the injector marks if you care. The instructions call for painting the back of this desert yellow to sort of be a carbon fiber. You could obviously put yellow twill in there if you were so desired. And then you have the interior bucket itself, which is, I believe, stripped down a little bit to be a race car bucket. I believe this parts runner may legitimately be specific to the Group A car. It has to be because there's all the roll caging and stuff like that. So you have a stripped down interior bucket, which is always nice because you're not just throwing a race car interior into a street car. So you have like the top of your strut tower. Whoops, there we go. Top of your strut towers for the rear struts and a gutted interior platform. So I like this, for being what it is. I mean, it'd be nice if the side panels were separate and everything else like that. But again, it's, 30 years old at this point. So what are you going to do? But overall, the detailing is decent in it for what it is, and this would be black in the race car, so just have to chuck some semi-gloss black down in there anyway. So not really worried about it, unless you really feel like detail painting. Overall speaking, that would just be black, and you're not gonna be able to really see it through the inside anyway. So the last parts runner we have is this, which is the chassis itself. So you have your chassis floor pan, and then you have pretty much all of the remaining parts of your suspension. You have your front and rear brakes, you have all of the sway arms for the front and rear sway arms. This is the steering rod. Your wipers are down here. Your rear transmission carrier, if you want to call it, the lower A arms of the rear suspension. You have a one-piece drive shaft, drive axle type of deal going on here. Your front piece of suspension. There's another set of struts and steering, front and rear struts. I'm going to guess that these are strictly for the civilian vehicle, and so you would not use these parts. This is your rear spoiler, and obviously this over here will be your street exhaust system. So you get a free street exhaust for a 635 out of this. So this parts runner obviously is shared with the street car, and then this will of course be the top of your dashboard here, where you're going to cut off the edges of it to get it to fit around the roll cage. Overall, the detail on the chassis itself looks good for the age of the kit. Everything is separate, as you can see, so nothing's molded in there. The only thing you paint a separate color other than white is this little area back here, which I believe is supposed to be the probably the oil cooler, I'm going to guess. For some reason this was painted black, and usually if it would be something related, it may just be, at this point, may just be the bottom of the transaxle more than anything else. Maybe that makes the transaxle look a little more complete. And then you have on the top side here your engine bay, which is, again, black is such a rotten color to try to film. But you get the sort of the gist of it, I guess. There we go. It's sort of kind of in focus. So as I said, this whole thing needs to be painted white, which is kind of an aggravation that's molded in black. But a couple of go-throughs with Tamiya white primer will take care of this. The biggest thing to remember here would be, getting a good coverage not only on the top half of this, but also, on the bottom half and the firewall area and everything, in here. It would lead me to believe that if you're building these race cars in other colors, that the chassis paint is more than likely either going to be white or body color on everything. This car, as it represents the 85 24 Hours of Spa car, is a Schnitzer Motorsports car, and that Schnitzer Motorsports car would have been handed down through other series, so it's more than likely that, say, the car that ran this race, the 85 Spock race. I'm going to try to figure out who the heck the drivers were on this. And the drivers on this car were Japanese. So it's possible that this car was handed down from Schnitzer or handed down from somebody else from the 1984 season to the 1985 JTCC season. There's also a Marlboro-sponsored one that ran the Gr.A race of Macau. That would be a Schnitzer car that's handed down. So even though that car is obviously white and fluorescent red, the chassis would still be white. Chances are the chassis is going to be white on pretty much all of them, unless you find a car that is original, meaning that it's not handed down from one team to another, and it was a darker color, like a black, a blue, something like that. That may be a situation where you'd have to worry about painting the body color of that, but otherwise, pretty much all of these are going to be white. Now, if you want to leave it black, who cares? I mean, I care because, of course, I'm, a little bit retentive about these things. I'll be the first one to admit, in terms of at least some sense of accuracy. I mean, it's hard to tell a lot of times with like something that was it raced in a foreign country 30 years ago. What color was the interior? There may be pictures of it. There may not be pictures of it. It all depends on, you know, how well things were documented. Now, the Intertech races, because they were so famous, because they were a draw of international drivers to Japan, most of the Intertech races are on YouTube. You can dig around. Now, they're going to be Japanese language. For the most part, there are some British language ones from the late 1980s when a lot of the British drivers went over there. When Steven Soper and people like that ran the series in its entirety, along with being in like European touring or whatever. But most of it's going to be a situation where it's going to be in Japanese. So you can just enjoy the video. You're not going to understand the video, but you can enjoy it. And so that brings us to, obviously, the last part of this kit, which is the body. This body managed to stand up through its 30 years of box storage pretty well. Obviously, it's a sealed plastic kit, so, you know, obviously, other than like damage from being stepped on or something like that, we wouldn't expect any kind of real damage to it. You get the idea pretty much of the portions here. This body, I'm pretty sure, is 100% shared with the streetcar. The streetcar, I believe, is molded in silver, though. I'd have to go home and actually dig my actual streetcar out to figure that one out. But you can sort of get the gist here on the side in terms of this area here is black, so it's a black surround with a chrome trim that runs around the inside of it, and then there's a black, you know, inner trim along with this side pillar. There is it mentions making this chrome trim around the front have a black edge around it. I think that would be real close to being near to impossible unless you have some really fine tipped brushes and whatnot. And then your rear window has trim as well. Looking at this body as best as I can in this sort of low light environment that I have in the truck, I have my magnifier with my light and stuff like that, so I can work on it that way. There are obviously mold running lines that affect the bottom of this bumper area that go up across this area of the back bumper and up onto the trunk, where they are. Sorry, I know it's not on camera, but I need to be able to look at it. Which pretty much run up. There's a pretty much like a flash line across the back here, which is a mold line, and then those things run up through this trunk. The mold line reappears. You can't see it, but you can hear it right here. The mold line reappears, goes up into the trim. It then crosses the upper pillar here. It rides this side trim down, rides the top of the fender, and then comes down pretty much right on the edge of the grill area here, and then down. So I wouldn't really necessarily worry about cleaning the front end of this up too much, because maybe a quick swipe down both sides of the hood to sort of smooth the line down a little bit, but it's not real prominent. It really doesn't stand out a whole heck of a lot. I'm not going to screw with trying to sand it through all this textured area on the front, and then this part here is going to be covered up by the front bumper parts anyway. This part back here, you're going to need to clean up, you know, outside of the area where the rear taillights go, the area where the rear bumper surround goes, but obviously this part down here is not covered by anything, so you need to sand that off. Again, if you care about that sort of thing. There is a Tamiya logo, you know, injected into the roof. If you want to take that off there, telling you how polystyrene your kit is. Obviously these are your fuel filler cutouts. They are, I don't know how well I can show that. They are thin. You can see through the plastic. It's obviously a very thin plastic, so you probably could stab that with a hobby knife and you know, cut that out. Without too much trouble. I personally would take a Dremel with a rotator cutter bit and pop through the plastic that way, just so you're making a nice clean circle. There are, by the way, I don't know if you will show up here. Let me flip it this way and see. I don't know what's good, but this one is smooth, and this one has a tab in it, which I'm going to assume correspond to the actual fuel filler things, so that you mount the fuel fillers on the correct sides. Like that would matter, but they make it so that, you know, Tamiya being what Tamiya is, they make it so that you are sure of where your parts are going. That has always been a Tamiya thing. You see here, maybe, oops, I'm tilting it the wrong way. There's a BMW logo already engraved into here. There's also a BMW logo already engraved into the trunk area itself. So painting those would probably be a huge, colossal pain. You need to take off the little M6 logo right here, which you probably can't see, but it's right here. And that's the one thing you need to remove. You probably should also fill the fuel filler door. I'm not sure about that. I'll have to look and see on a real one of these whether or not the fuel filler door is closed off. It looks like it's still being shown on the box art car. So, but I'm gonna have to do some research on the 1.1 and see if these were welded shut or if they were just there and obviously not connected to anything. But it's a clean body. It's a clean casting. Doing this part up here is gonna stink on ice in terms of painting all of the. You know, all of this needs to be black in here. There needs to be black in here. Then the grill surrounds themselves have to be chrome, and it's a little bit of annoyance. But shouldn't be too terribly hard. The biggest thing I would think in terms of trying to make it, you know, accurate would be getting this eyebrow trim and the lower trim on here should be chromed, and that's a awful narrow line, even with trying to do metal foil wise. Obviously, there's an M6 logo on the grill because this is the body from the street car. You know, your mileage may vary. I don't know what you would want to do with that. I'm just going to leave it alone because there's no real good way to take that off there without punching a hole in the grill. As you can see, the grill is see-through. I mean, so it's molded through. You know, there's no real good way to take that off there and then get the grills back unless you were to go buy the photo etch set and tear these grills out entirely and replace them with PE, which to me is way more problems than it's worth for a fairly simple box stock or box stock-ish you know, build. So anyway, guys, that wraps up this video. I didn't want to make it too terribly long. I know my box videos can be ridiculously long on certain things. This doesn't look like it's too terribly bad based on the amount of time that's been recorded. So or the amount of data that's been recorded, I guess I should say. So anyway, guys, like I said, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you'll stay tuned with the series, and we will see you guys on the other side.